When we think of or talk of AI or any digital technology for that matter, most of the times the conversations are around implementations, use cases in digital first businesses, which is why today I'm particularly excited to have Ganapathy with us, who is the Chief Digital and Analytics Strategist at Holcim. Now, Holcim is a constructions materials and construction related services provider with about 45 countries presence, if I'm getting that right, Ganapathy. So this is legacy business. And at the outset, Ganapathy, thank you for letting me pick your brains on how AI and allied topics, allied areas in technology are transforming, have the potential to transform the world of business, sustainability, given that Holcim has sustainable construction clearly called out in its company profile. And if we have time, perhaps a couple of allied topics. Welcome to this podcast, or shall we say video podcast, Ganapathy or Gana as you're affectionately called.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. In fact, you're right. So we are one of the leading players globally in the building material space. So when we define building materials, if you look at our company logo, it's an infinite loop. So that represents circularity in construction. And again, if you look at the color, it goes from blue to green, which means we cover all the way from the foundation till the roof. So 34th of the message which is getting conveyed through our logo. In fact, some of the questions you just mentioned, right? Legacy business, construction, compared to let's say FMCG or a new tech business, fintech business. These are exactly some of the questions I also had before I joined Lafarge Holcim about 5 years ago. At that point in time, we were called Lafarge Holcim, and now we are called Holcim. So, to my excitement, and as expected, the industry doesn't matter. It all matters is, do we have the right use cases? Do we have the potential? Then comes all the technologies, right? So we will indeed speak about some of our journey so far in the AI analytics space, and I'm looking forward to the interaction. Yes.
All right. So let me start with this. Would you agree? Given the diverse background you have come from automobile to industry 1.0 to enterprise tech and now niche construction, that some industries, some legacy industries, conservative or seem to be overly conservative in adoption of digital technology, whether it is right from conversations around cloud a decade and a half back, or today's AI, ML, data-driven technologies. Now, is that observation? I'm not calling it criticism, because a business does what it deems to be right for its stakeholders. But is that observation justified, or you think it is just some industries that get the limelight and are in the news when it comes to tech, while similar implementations are happening everywhere?
So I've been in this data analytics space for it's almost about 15 to 18 years in the hardcore data. So earlier, it was all called analytics, right? So it's basically number crunching. Now it's all further branched out into data engineering and data science and ML ops and AI engineers, Gen AI engineers now. So it is getting specialized.
Prompt engineers,
it's changing day by day, right? And then some of the big levers which also have helped in the direction is also, number one is the cloud, number two, the IoT, the ability to process large amount of data, including big data. So all of this has evolved over a period of time. And then from a pure supporting function or a back office sort of a function, now data analytics is a central lever of how industry is driving. And then the building material space is not far behind. And in our plants, for example, logistic network, even the job sites where we implement or deliver our products and services are pretty much instrumented with sensors and connected systems, which means we get data real time, almost close to real time, on how our assets are performing, our processes are behaving, and even demand sensing, right? So some of our businesses are highly elastic. Some of them have a bit of a lead time between point of consumption to point of production. So we have a mix and match of the various type of demand predictions on the table. And instead of just relying on averages and experiences, we have data and analytics playing as a critical lever, as I said. Now, what does that mean for companies like us? What you refer to as the legacy businesses or traditional businesses? We can use predictive, prescriptive insights to anticipate issues before they actually happen. And we can be more proactive than just react. So what I mean by anticipate issue is it could be in our similar plan, either a probability that certain unstable situations can arise in clean, which can affect the protection parameters. it could be a equipment failure, it could be a maintenance event, or even a change in market demand, and then we can take targeted action with data and numbers on our hands. It also helps us to look at the entire value chain, not just from individual silos. So we typically refer to as quarry to lorry. So quarry, we mean from where, the raw material for cement actually gets extracted, and finally lorry means where the final cement gets dispatched to customer locations. If I take the cement vertical, if we similarly look at our ready mix, where it's more like a just-in-time supply chain. We have to deliver pre-mixed concrete to the customer's location. If it's too late, then we have performance issue. If it was too early, then it may not match with the construction schedule of the customer. So it's more like a just-in-time dispatch I'll speak about. And ultimately, it helps us to improve reliability, safety, customer service, and indeed cost. And then it also helps us to build a sustainable and innovative ways of building solutions for our customers as well as to the country which we serve for. So in a nutshell, I have also seen and still learning in different industries. So like you said, I've seen how the automotive world is, how the consumer products and computing systems industry. I've seen how it's happening in the healthcare side of it. So it's a ongoing learning. And I will not put a legacy or a new edge or cutting edge. It all depends upon the kind of data maturity, the data conservation, and the appetite to find the right use cases and to drive business value.
Interesting, Gana, because one would assume that where someone who is not connected to the industry closely, that a lot of these implementations would be on the bottom line side, bringing in efficiencies. But you also mentioned a couple of areas where there is a direct top line impact as well. Any specific instances or use cases that are in progress that you can talk about with respect to modern tech? But I don't want to narrow it down to AI because simply because it is the flavor of the season or the last couple of years for that matter.
So when we look at our, let's say, data strategy or AI strategy, we have taken a conscious approach. We don't build it as a standalone. It is basically a reflection of what is our business strategy. So which also means, let's say, be it profitable growth and the decarbonization in an accelerated fashion. We have an aggressive goal to become net zero. And then how do we provide a differentiated customer experience across our lines of businesses, be it cement or aggregates or ready mix, even solutions and products. So some examples. So we always make sure that, the use case driven, when we say we always start from the real operational problems and design AI solutions around them, not the vice versa. I want to just launch Gen AI projects, right? So what? So what is your business impact? I want to bring in deep learning. So the deep learning, any of these techniques are basically by the definition tools and techniques. At the end of the day, it has to solve a business problem or to realize business opportunity, and not just following on the bottom line, but also on the top line. So we speak about a couple of examples, though might be a flavor around, how are we using that to, improve reliability, prevent an equipment failure, etc., etc. So we have adopted large scale, AI digital initiatives in the manufacturing space, indeed, where we have ML models look at various process data, vibration, temperature, etc., and then look at the various subsystems of our critical equipment and try to predict failures and that helps us to schedule some of the interventions really before a breakdown happens. So we are typically a process industry if we talk about cement, and any unplanned breakdown can significantly affect our customer schedules as well as our production. So the attempt is always to detect proactively what is the probability of a breakdown to happen, and then we come out with appropriate interventions, and most importantly, the safety. Safety is number one priority for all of our operations, be it on the shop floor, be it in the offices, be it while the logistic fleet is operating at the customer's premises. So that becomes number one, and we want to completely avoid any safety risk for our teams, both within our operations area as well as when our fleet goes out. Other example is, how do we optimize the processes? So again, be it in the grinding mills for cleans or even ready mixing operations in the batching systems, how do we reduce fuel consumption? How do you optimize power consumption? And make sure that the quality of our products and services are delivered consistently, generating superior customer experience. So these are not just focused on the bottom line, but also looking at the top line, improving customer stickiness to our solutions and products. And when you zoom into, let's say, Our logistics, optimization engines, algorithms, demand forecasting are all helping us to do smarter dispatching and making sure that we do the most optimal routing, thereby reducing the overall carbon footprint per trip as well as the cost of deliveries. If I zoom into, let's say, the mixed design, so mixed design in each country, we have local standards to meet. Each customer has got specific requirements from a strength perspective, yield perspective. These are some of the specific, industry specific terminologies. So if I speak some Greek and Latin, please call out Kailash. So customers do specify, apart from strength, the required other properties, let's say of a ready mix concrete, and we are bound to deliver what is required by the customer on time as per the schedule. And we are also, deep into exploring computer vision safety techniques to make sure, we are monitoring restricted zones, which otherwise is very difficult or even dangerous for people to go in to physically inspect. So we have drones which can go and give us the data, and then we can analyze it to see either a intervention required or not, or even near miss incidences. We have the data, and with the objective being that we want to make sure everyone who comes into our premises goes back safely while we run our operations efficiently and be sustainable all through our value chain.
But as you detailed out the specific use cases, I couldn't help but wonder any of these systems for to work predictably, reliably, will require data purity. So while sensors is one way, so how do you tackle data hygiene issues? Where human input is required. Did you have any change management issues in bringing people on board to input authentic data into the systems on which the rest of the decisions are made?
Yeah, this is something which I believe every organization has. So we are no different. We do have legacy systems. We have fragmented data landscape. So it'll be very hard to believe someone comes and says, in my organization, I have all the data readily consumable. I can pick up any AI use case, just the start of a button. Something is different, right? So at least I have not come across which is very neat and clean. But then the approach is be pragmatic and then start with whatever you have, as long as we have a valid business opportunity. Now, by business and by the nature of our customer requirements, we do are having a system which is completely decentralized. So unlike many other typical MNCs which are more centrally controlled, we operate, you might have seen in our annual reports or messages in the media, etc. Each and every market has full ownership and empowerment to meet our customer requirement, which means the operations, planning, demand planning, delivery mechanisms, logistics, all of them are highly decentralized, which also means each country can have its own data, its own systems. Some of them are indeed in our ERPs and other corporate systems. Some of them could be highly local in the sense, for example, market intelligence, right? That is something which we collect. External data, which are very, very, very country specific, city specific sometimes. So these are all available may not be in a centralized corporate system. But what we have been doing is to establish a strong data foundation. So making sure that we extract once and reuse multiple times. And we have data governance and data quality policies into our systems. We do have looking at, how do we come out with a unified data platform to make sure that the use cases can be accelerated. We do have an approach to go with data products, which have defined data owner, data stewards, and making sure that, the governance is embedded. And it is very, very important for us to adhere to the local laws of each of the countries which we operate, which means what are the corporate rules and corporate guidelines and country specific guidelines from a data security perspective, data privacy perspective, what is an acceptable usage, what is not an acceptable usage, which type of data where we want to be defensive, which type of data we want to be offensive. For example, defensive means we want to financial data, right? So we don't want everybody to start coming up with their own definition, their own KPIs, or we are well-defined accounting principles, reporting principles, which are used consistently across the group. There are some data which are highly localized, and hence we want to be people to have the full flexibility to use and derive insights. Good example is market insights or the local information gathered by our sales experts on the ground. Here they have the full flexibility to analyze the data, create insights, generate customer insights based on the segmentation, based on the line of business, etc. So it's a mix and match. While we are building strong foundations from a data governance, data ownership perspective, at the same time, we also don't want to slow down just because we have a fragmented landscape. And one of the other approaches we have always taken is to decouple large-scale IT transformation projects to data consumption challenges. So because sometimes that is a bit of a long-term, long lead time involving. So if there is an immediate need from a particular business, they don't have to wait for a big scale landscape integration. So as long as the data is available, we pragmatically bring them all to one space. create, the so-called bronze and silver and the gold layers, which is all the way from, the raw data, which is available for future discovery, for future use cases, all the way into, let's say, a gold layer, which has curated specific use cases, which can be reused as long as the features and the data elements remain the same. So it's a journey, and we have learned a lot of things. We have been making huge progresses. But I completely agree that data foundation is something which is very, very important, and then unless that is made established in the right dimensions, some of the projects may be successful from a POC or a pilot, but then huge challenges when it comes to scaling up and then replicating across the company. So that had been sort of our learning in this journey, Kailash.
I'm sure a lot of data leaders and strategists would be nodding their heads at what you outlined in terms of the importance of bringing the right data together, and at the same time not necessarily having to wait for the entire landscape to be ready for org-wide implementation. Now, I want to move in the direction of sustainability because, again, more specifically about AI, it is under scrutiny. A lot of valid questions being asked about the sheer carbon footprint of running these AI models and how scalable it will be from merely from the sheer energy consumption perspective as well. But if in your industry, which is also under some lens for carbon footprint and the need to get more eco-sensitive and sustainable. So AI helping you make construction more sustainable, I'm sure will be a very interesting take for a lot of people, starting with me. So can you throw some light on in this area?
So the sustainability, maybe some industries are far ahead in that journey, and some industries are about to catch up. But I think one day or another, every operation, every activity we'll do will all have to be, sustainable from an overall perspective. So especially in our company, we have taken a net zero target for 2020 and 2050, and we are well on our course to reach those targets. Now, decarbonization, right? So everybody speaks about it. For us, it's a core pillar of our strategy, and data and we have seen are the heart of turning those ambition into a day-to-day reality. So specific examples, let's say on the product side, right? So we have detailed emissions data. We categorize the scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, as you might have seen from some of our materials out in the media. So we track all the three, and then we have detailed emissions data and material models which will help us to design and industrialize how some of these low carbon solutions. For example, we have EcoPact, which is our low carbon concrete that can significantly reduce the carbon footprint, while maintaining, this is also very important, while maintaining the performance which are required by a customer, as well as to meet country-specific standards. So we do have product data which helps us to create multiple simulations before we even go to actual production. Within the operations, optimizing the process parameters, reducing energy consumptions, kilns, mills, grinding mills, it helps us to avoid a lot of fuel usage. Even the clinker factor, which is again, very, very industry-specific terminology, it basically represents for every unit quantity of cement, how much of clinker you will want to grind. Now, if you are able to optimize clinker factor, that's a big impact on the overall footprint reduction. Electricity consumption, which are the major levers for our scope 1 and scope 2. Going to the scope 3, for example, across our logistics supply chain, it helps us to, data and analytics helps us to look at what are my sourcing options, how do I optimize it, what are my transport modes? So we have multiple modes for transport, rail, road, and even ocean in some of our countries. How do we make the routing decisions to making sure that overall carbon footprint and the cost of distribution is minimal? And finally, we have a accounting and digital tool ecosystem to track what is the carbon accounting, how do we report out, and we have the ability to report out at a plan level, product level, project level. When I say project, I mean a customer project level. And this is becoming very, very important, not just for us on our own roadmap, but also for our customers, because our customers also now want to have a full visibility of their value chain, wherein we are part of one of their value chains. They also want to be able to fully have the visibility and manage the sustainability, and then thereafter they also have to report out not just to the local authorities which they are operating, but also to their own customers. So it's not just one organization or one industry trying; it just spread across. Different industries play different parts of the value chain, but sooner or later, I anticipate everybody speaking about sustainability and reduction in carbon footprint, not just select industries.
So thank you, Kunal. That was eye-opening and then a very important topic across industries. Can I, before we let you go, can I ask you for some crystal ball gazing? See, we've already said you've been there, done that. You've had a very diverse background, the kind of organizations, businesses where you've been. So, I'll just leave it open. What do you see in the short to midterm? I guess nobody can predict long term, but short to midterm, what do you see with these technologies in your industry and elsewhere as well? And if you have any words of advice for businesses that are still now looking to embrace modern tech in their operations.
Yeah, you actually described it, right? So nobody can predict. So the rate at which technology is evolving, it was not this. So for example, there were not many LLMs in the market 2 years ago, right? So every day we discover which is outperforming which other model, and we get amazed by the number of billions of parameters each of these models are getting trained and coming, making it available cheaper day by day. But I think speaking about the overall construction building materials, I think we expect over the next couple of years, it's going to be much more data defined and integrated. What I mean to say is from all the way from design to execution and throughout the life cycle, we see a greater chances of integration between the manufacturers, the contractors, the customers. We are shared data platforms, which will make it more efficient and transparent construction ecosystems. Though by definition, it is highly fragmented, but there is a lot of signals coming in for more and more collaboration between the various players in the value chain. Now, we also think AI is going to be increasingly sitting in the core industry workflow. So what I mean to core industry is all the way from sitting embedded in the design tools, planning systems, site management platforms. So the decisions which are being taken about, let's say, materials or methods or schedules, automatically, the equations will consider carbon, cost, and performance. It's not something being done in isolation. So it is like a multivariate optimization or multivariate analysis than a single variate. Yeah, so all these parameters simultaneously finds and plays in the equation. I think this is more general in the manufacturing industry. So I personally am observing more convergence happening between, let's say, the digital twins and IoT and advanced analytics. So this is going to help us to simulate planned operations, simulate our networks, and even the entire job sites in our customers' place before we actually build and modify them. So we are able to say that, if I make a variable X change, what is going to be impact on Y, and it's become very easy to simulate with a large amount of data, even using synthetic data. But this is going to help us to look at the end-to-end value chain and make changes even before physically they are occurring. Gen AI already it is helping us a lot of way in terms of how do we manage knowledge, which usually lies in the head of individual resources, where people keep moving in an organization. But now Gen AI helps us to quickly own a new employee coming in. It helps us engineers and operators to learn best practices almost in real time with contextual knowledge specific to the industry, troubleshooting, training at the point of need. I think other area we are also seeing is the new carbon, low carbon materials and circular business models. So in fact, we have CBM, circular business model, is going to help us move away from a traditional, because you also used the word in the beginning of a discussion. You refer to as a traditional. It's highly moving from being a traditional to a completely most innovative space, which is going to have a full impact, right? How do you making sure that the construction demolition waste is being reused to the new material ecosystem when we produce cement or concrete? How can we use technologies are developing to bring in more advanced binders, recycling of the demolition waste, etc. All of them will be optimized, and I think AI will going to play a big role. This is at least our anticipation. I think overall, if I have to sum up, I think it will move away from a mindset of project by project optimization to a full the value chain optimization, which includes assets, keeping in mind sustainability, productivity, and then not just from a manufacturer point of view, but also manufacturer, construction contractor, the end user, as well as when a particular building is ready to be recycled and reused after demolition. So the entire thing we feel is going to be optimized altogether, not just at a silo or a point-to-point basis. So that is sort of what we anticipate the next couple of years at least.
So there's a lot to unpack here. Probably each of these threads could be material for a separate discussion in itself. But for today's discussion, on behalf of our audience, our viewers, thank you for giving us a peek into this world of transformation in the construction industry and just letting me pick your brains on this over the last half an hour. We hope to have you again, discuss more, unpack more, and learn more with you.
Thank you, Kailas. Interesting to hear how other industries look at some of the so-called legacy traditional industries. Like I said, sooner or later, we believe every industry will speak about being sustainable. It is not just limited to the scope of few industries, but everyone will have a role to play in making this world sustainable and more energy efficient. So thank you for that.